Hi everyone, it's Philippa here, and today what I'm going to be showing you how to do is I'm going to be showing you how to make a sort of generic Worbla breastplate. So I've got all my stuff laid out for that. I've also prepared a quick pattern which won't be featured in this tutorial. This is basically just one of those rack snapping cling film and tape over yourself and then just draw out your pattern onto it. It's really easy if you have a friend with you. I won't be including it only because this is the breastplate one and you sort of have to get a bit shirtless with that and it's not going on the internet. So what you have to do for that is cling film, masking tape. Very simple, very easy, and it's something that if you get wrong you can try it again, redo it. It's not going to go too badly. So before we get started, the things you're going to need immediately are heat gun. So this was probably about 20 quid from my nearest B&Q hardware shop sort of thing. And it's done its job so far. It starts to feel a bit old now, so I feel like it's going to go soon. You'll need a pen. I tend to use marker pens because they come out quite a lot nicer. Pencil crayons don't tend to work a lot on Worbla. You're going to need, for a breastplate, you're going to need a little tub of Vaseline or wax mould release or something. Don't use oil or butter because apparently that doesn't work when I didn't have any Vaseline. I've tried that and it does not work. So yeah, little tub of Vaseline is probably the best thing you can get. It does not have to be aloe vera. This is just, I got it in a little set thing, so. And also a clear plastic bauble. This one is, I think it's 8 inches across. And this also actually is a, if you look down the side you see a little seam. This is a Christmas bauble. So it's actually 2 halves that you paint the inside of and it's decorative. And you can pick these up on eBay if you Google basically craft Christmas bauble. Or craft globe. It tends to be, if you Google the words craft acrylic globe, they tend to be a lot more expensive, and they come in very specific sizes which are quite tricky to find one that is actual boob sized or larger boob sized if you go for a large cup, which is what I'm going for with the 8 inch. So that's basically what you Google, which is acrylic bauble, and they come in 2 halves, so if you're like me and you tend to lose them or crack them a lot, which is what I've done on this one, they're quite easy. I think this is about £6. So it's a good, they're a little bit expensive, but it's a good investment. Other things you're going to need are scissors. Now I use quite heavy duty stainless steel, hefty, hurt your hand scissors, and I've got a little bit of a sore hand there because I keep cutting and rubbing my hand on it, which is quite dangerous. Also, you're going to need craft foam. Now, you can use big sheets of this if you can get hold of a large sheet of it, or you can go with my plan, which is to use children's craft foam. I think it's called Foamies in America, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. Please don't citate me on that. But yeah, you just need some craft foam. I've got loads of stuff because you can pick it up for around £3 a pack in Asda and Tesco's for 10 sheets. Which is quite decent actually. It's a lot cheaper than it is on eBay, which is surprising. eBay's about £4 for 10 sheets, so I do suggest going to your supermarket and picking some of that up. And that's all you're going to need for the actual armour part. Other things I recommend to have, apart from your Worbla of course, you need your Worbla. Other things I recommend to have is a bag on the side. This is to throw in all your offcuts, all your spare pieces, everything, because these can all be melted down and used for other bits. I found them quite easy to cut, like pieces like this. I can cut my circles out of for my scales on these bits, so they cut out quite nicely. So yeah, keep all these bits. Do not throw them away. It's alright to throw 1 or 2 away. I have a tendency to do that, but try not to throw as much away as possible. Okay, so onto the breastplate. You have your pattern. Now, as I say, wrap yourself in masking tape, wrap yourself in cling film, then in masking tape, then draw over with a marker pen on what you want. I tend to only have one piece, so this piece will go here, there's a middle seam that goes down and it wraps just around. This is going to go underneath a actual piece of fabric. This is going to be covered in fabric, and then it's going to be detailed over the top because it's going to be part of a bodysuit sort of thing. I'm going to be doing Lilith from Darksiders, so this is going to go underneath as a sort of support more than actually a decorative piece. But you only want one side because then it's going to be symmetrical. The worst thing I've seen some people do is when I've done it myself and I regret doing it, is when you make two sides and you make them and then you realise they're so wonky and awful, and it looks so much better if you cut one piece out and then cut the same piece out and just flip it over. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your breastplate piece and you're just going to lay it onto your foam. Okay, so you want to get it pretty close. I'm just going to overlap that bit there because I didn't cut my edge very straight, unfortunately. So you just want to get it along a straight edge. Take your pen and then you're going to just draw along. Now remember, this bit is really easy because craft foam is really cheap. So if you go wrong and if you're not comfortable with working with Worbla, because I know a lot of people get quite nervous about working with it because it's so expensive and it's like, oh, what if I go wrong and things. And a lot of the comments I normally get are, what if I go wrong with Worbla? It honestly doesn't matter. It's such a versatile thing that if you go wrong with it and if you make errors and if you sort of mess up a little bit, it's not too bad because it's so movable. Like the number of times that I've cut pieces out and they've been too big, or like I think I've got a pair of shoes upstairs that I forgot to bring down. My shoes at the side, I cut them with a point corner, and then I decided that I didn't actually want them with a point corner. I wanted them with a curve because it'd look better. All you do is just cut through it. There's no sort of difficulty to it. There's no trick. You cut through it, heat up the edge, and then you just squish it back together again. I might actually do that for you, just to show you how easy it is. But it doesn't matter as long as you don't cut it too small sometimes. Then again, it can still be patched up. It's just if you patch it up, it sometimes looks a bit. You can tell where you patched it up. Like I've done a few pieces, I think, where I've got the seams right. I'm trying to find one to show you. Yeah, but seams are actually quite tricky to get right because they're so awkward and so sort of, you got to heat the Worbla up and try not to melt it, and they are quite tricky. So there's two pieces of foam cut out. Very easy, very simple. So those two pieces are going to fit together like that in the middle. Now I'm probably going to need to straighten out those edges there because I've buggered them up a little bit. But yeah, they're just going to fit together like that. And then you're going to put the Worbla on. Another thing I have found as well is if you do buy the craft foam because you can't get any larger sheets, what you can do is just masking tape pieces together. For these hip plates, oh, I've tied them together. For these hip plates, the Worbla, obviously, craft foam sheet doesn't fit. It's a bit too big. So what I did was I taped two together, and you can't actually see it that badly. It's very faintly down the middle, but you can really see it up close. But because I'm doing the scale over it, I wasn't too smooth. And there's a little bit of a bubble there, but I wasn't too smooth with it, so it doesn't actually matter. Because the scales are on the top, so it covers everything up. But you can actually just tape two pieces together with masking tape. Just try and leave a very small gap. Don't tape them right close to each other, only because you can't bend masking tape very well. So if you want to bend it, it does end up a little bit flat in the middle. You can see on that one, I actually learned from mistake, and I taped it really close, and then I couldn't bend the masking tape. So that's basically pretty simple to do. You have your two pieces. Now we're going to transfer them to the Worbla. So here I have a fresh sheet. Now people always say what side matters. I find that I prefer the rough side facing upward, only because it adheres to the primer better. Because normally when you prime something, you sand it down, so it's got a rough surface. So the rough surface tends to adhere better. But you still have to prime over it a lot more. But it doesn't peel off. So it is worth using the rough side, taking a lot more effort to prime it smooth, but then it not peeling off in the end. The smoother side, as you see here, it's slightly shiny, slightly smoother. I like that more because when you're wearing it for a long time, and obviously anyone who's worn a large cosplay for a long time will know this, it gets very warm and very sweaty very fast. Now Worbla's no exception to this because Worbla's are plastic. So when you wear anything plastic for a long time, if you've worn like a plastic bangle or something that's quite close to your skin or whatever, you'll know, it gets really sweaty, like unbelievably warm and horrible when you wear it for a real long time. So I find it's nicer to have it on the smooth side because the rough side can be quite irritating to your skin. But that's just personal preference. A lot of the time I actually roll with both sides because I actually cut my pattern out wrong. Like a lot of the time I do bugger up the patterning of it. Okay, so what I'm doing here is let's straighten out the line a bit. I'm just drawing around my shape. Now I don't know if you can see very well on the camera, but I'm drawing around it with a gap on either side. Now the more confident you feel with this, the smaller your gap needs to be. I wouldn't say anything smaller than that really, only because it's tricky to sometimes stick it back down together if you've got anything smaller. So I wouldn't say anything smaller than about 0.5 centimetre. So but if you're having if you feel less confident, draw around it a bit larger, only because it's more room for error, in correcting things. So you can trim down a bit more if you're messing with material and things. You've got a lot more space to move things around in and a lot more room to play. So you draw around each pieces. Now remember I need 2 of these, so I'm just going to lay that one down there. You try your best, I mean I'm not doing a very good job here, because can I fit another one on there? Try your best to sort of keep as much, I'll do that, to keep as much space as possible. So if it does fit in a corner, treat it like you would sort of if you're cutting something out of card. Don't just slam it in the middle and draw around it. Try and draw from the edges if you've got a straight line. Try and keep it very sort of... The more space you have to work, you can always find something that sort of fits a little bit. I did some leg pieces. I did these leg pieces recently. And I did these legs, some shoes to go with them, and these top parts here, which go over the knee. And they fitted on a whole sheet, but just on their own. Like I had a whole sheet just for these parts. And that's because it's quite difficult to sort of work with Bauble because a lot of the time the spacing, it is all about the spacing and trying to get as much out of the material as you can and not sort of wasting areas, as it were. But as I say, there isn't anything that goes to waste. So if you do have loads of offcuts, it doesn't really matter too much because you can smelt them down and make other bits. But at the same time, you don't want to be working too much and using too much space because it's quite tricky. So here we have the pattern for the wall bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut these out, and then we've got all the pieces laid out ready to go. Hi everyone, I'm back, and my camera died yesterday, hence the change of clothes and change of day. So basically, yesterday I cut out these little pieces out of the Worbla. So we now have 2 sides to each piece. So these pieces of foam now, what we're going to do is we're going to sandwich them in between the 2 pieces of Worbla. Now this, what it does is it actually adds a bit more strength to your piece. So when you're actually wearing a breastplate or piece of armour, it's quite tricky to work with just one piece. I've worked with one piece before where I've made some pauldrons and some leg plates and stuff, and it's quite flimsy and it tends to fall apart, and you end up fixing a lot of your armour constantly. Like my leg plates from a Hercene were only made out of one sheet and not made double thickness, and they just fell apart so much, and I really recommend making it this way, especially if you're holding yourself in boob wise, because you need a bit more security. So what we're going to do is I'm going to heat up one side of this. Now always work on a wooden floor or some piece of hard surface, whether it be a table, probably not a table or a dining table, because you might ruin it because of the heat of the heat gun. So something that you know is not going to get ruined. So this hard floor is perfectly alright to work on, because it's got like a shine on it, so it doesn't actually burn it. But if you don't have hardwood or you have carpet or something, I recommend just using a plain piece of wood. Don't use anything plastic because it'll melt, and it'll also stick to the Worbla, and Worbla's really tricky to peel off things because it does end up ruining your piece, and you don't need to cut something out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up. Now I'm probably going to have to turn the video down when I edit this in a bit, so I'm not sure about that at the moment, but I'm going to heat this up and I'm going to show you what it does. Now I always say there's 3 stages to Worbla. There's the sort of a malleable stage, so it goes a bit, it goes a bit tacky first of all on top, so you get a bit of a stick, then it starts to warp and go a bit flexible, which is good for moulding around corners and things and swishing together and shaping, and then you have the really awful stage, which is like melting hot, which is good for when you're actually sculpting pieces, but I don't recommend going to that stage unless you have super asbestos hands like I do, which has come from a long time of working with this. So what I'll do now is I'll try and show you each piece, and I'll grab the camera in a minute and zoom in so you can actually see each of the stages. And that's it, that's all you need. So you see here, it's if I put it on my hand, it's got a bit of sort of lax to it, but it's a bit warm sort of, but it feels a little bit tacky to the touch. Now you place the foam in the middle as best you can, and mine's going a bit cool actually now, my Worbla, but it's not too bad. You just press it down as firm as you can. Now once you have that side on the floor, that's the best side, sort of flat side to work with. So you have a piece there that is foam and Worbla, and what happens is it just, when using craft foam, it just sticks, basically, quite easy. But the good thing is, if you don't, it just peels straight off. It's really weird, except my Worbla's got a bit cold. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the next piece and just lay it on top. No trick, no nothing. You can heat it up separately and then move it on, but a lot of the time when Worbla's heated, it tends to bend, move, wobble around a little bit. So it's a little bit awkward if you do it that way, but you can. It's just when you're making something like this, I find it nicer just to put it over the top, and also you can heat up these edges again on the outside. So lay that on top as best you can. If it doesn't fit, you can heat up. I always start by heating one side and working my way across. So what I can do is I can actually wiggle the piece a little bit and move it out. I might actually cut a little bit off this one to show you. But you can, if you cut it a little bit too short, so if it's like here for example, what you can do is you can just take this bit, and as you heat it, you just wiggle it. So you just pull it out and just stretch it out a little bit. That's all you do. So I'm just going to heat this bit for you now. So that's that. Now, I find it best what to do is if one side's gone cold, which mine has, because I was talking to the camera, flip it over, and then you just heat the edges again. Okay, so what we have now is something quite flexible, quite tacky. Now, remember Worbla's hot, and what you're gonna do is you're just gonna work along with your fingers and press it down. Now, you can get bubbles in Worbla quite easily, and that I find is from two things. One is the type of foam. So I used for this here, I used a really, really thick, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, a really thick blue foam, which was this stuff. So this is a lot thicker. Now, a lot of people ask if you can use either foam. Now this is either foam. And this, it's a bit too thick to use, because what happens is, I don't know if you can see on the surface, I've had to put a couple of things on it, but it really bubbles and gives a bit of an awful effect onto it. So I find all you need to do is just work a bit less heat. You never put too much heat on Worbla. You can always add more, and just work slowly with it. Smooth out any wrinkles with your hands, that sort of idea. If it gets stuck to the floor, like mine kind of did then, you just wait for it to cool and peel it off. Mine's going quite cool now. Okay, so here we have the two pieces. As you can see, these are still slightly more flexible. I've just reheated these up. The best way to reheat these is to reheat one side and then reheat the other side, so you don't get any bubbling. As I said, too much heat can heat up the foam and cause bubbling. Now, while these are slightly warm, you don't want them too hot so you can't touch them or pick them up. You just want them sort of a bit like a warm bubble bath sort of temperature. You just want to take a pair of scissors and trim down the side. Now, I've lost my black scissors, so I have to use these ones at the moment, which is pretty tricky to get through. Now, you just trim as close as you feel comfortable to the foam. There's going to be a bit of you're probably going to get a bit of bubbling like I did there. That's just the foam unsticking from the Worbla, because the Worbla's getting a bit too hot. Because it's a bit warm and weird. But yeah, what you need to do is you just need to follow the edge. Now, I did this without trimming off the excess, and you can see the seams, but really badly see them. They're really difficult to smooth down and get quite neat. If you do cut too much into it, I think I mentioned before, you just pinch it and cut it off. The best thing about doing it while it's warm as well is the scissors pinch together the Worbla. So you see there, what's happened is what's happened there is I've done it while it's cold, and the Worbla's not stuck properly together, where I've not pinched it properly. But you can actually see the foam inside. So what I'll do is I'll show you what to do. What all you do, take your heat and very lightly, keeping your fingers out of the way, heat. You don't need a lot of heat on it. You'll see it just start to speckle white. You don't want any more than that. And all you do is very quickly just pinch together. Now, you can do this if you cut too much off and there's foam showing. All you do is just, on that occasion, actually I've done it a bit there, is you just pull upwards as you pinch. So you just do that. And what it does, it just ever so slightly stretches it. And then just make sure they're a bit flatter than I've done them here. And there's one completed piece, basically. I just need to go over that in a minute and just neaten up the edge, because I've done a really terrible job of cutting that, it seems, because these scissors are a bit naff. But yeah, there you have one side of the finished. So there's one bit. So what you need to do now is you need to cut the other bit out. Another trick I have actually found is with the bubbling of the foam. If you do get a lot of bubbling, either smooth it out with your hands or like flat on the floor, place your hand on top and rub it in circles. And what that will do is that will just keep it flat but rub out any of the thing, because the one thing you don't want to do is rip Worbla. It's pretty tricky. So what I'll do is I'll get on with the other one and do a bit of a neater job this time. And I'll show you the two pieces when they're done. Hi guys, just a quick addition in the middle here. On reviewing the footage just now, I realised that actually one of the files is slightly corrupt and didn't actually record properly, which is the part in the middle where I'm now going to join the two pieces of the breastplate. So I'm just going to explain to you here that what you need to do is you're going to have to heat up the two joins, the two seams, okay, and just press them together. You need to do this on a hardwood floor, or as I say, hardwood or some sort of hard surface. Mine stuck to the floor a little bit. Now that's okay. All you need to do on that is you just need to wait for it to cool and it'll come right off. But as I say, all you need to do is you need to heat up the two edges and stick them together. If you're slightly confused about that, rewind the video to the part where I was talking about heating up the edges and sticking them together, the little join bits. It's exactly the same thing. You can also skip ahead or carry on watching. And I'll be talking in a minute about how to attach the boob cup to the breastplate. That again will sort of give you a rough idea of what to do. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Sorry. Okay, so here we have the piece that's just popped off the floor quite easily. Now this is a flat solid piece now, ready to be formed onto my mannequin here, which has just magically appeared. Now I say I'm choosing to use the mannequin only because video purposes. Normally I'd do it around myself, but that genuinely requires not having a shirt on. So for video purposes I'm going to do it around this lovely hardwood male mannequin that I've got. So basically it's just heat and bend. There's no special trick to it. The only thing I'd say is heat up one side, flip it over, heat up the other. If you heat it up too much on one side, it's not going to seep through because of the foam. It's going to sort of just make the foam bubble, and you'll get bubbles in your Worbla. So you don't want to heat it up too much again. I don't think I was picking this up, but can you see how when I heat this slightly, it warps? And it does seem to heat up a little bit. Right, it's quite soft on top, but it bends the entire thing. If you look at the other one, there we go, it warps again slightly. Now, generally, what's doing that is the fact that A, it's not heated up underneath, also the edges. Now, if the edges are still solid, they're not going to bend, so you do need to make sure you put a little bit more heat on the edges. Not too much though, but you can come to that at the end when you've heated up the other side. There we go. Also, can you see here there's just a little bit of bubbling? If you do get a little bit of bubbling just like that when you reheat it, just pat it down ever so gently with your hands, and it will just re-stick to the foam. If it's not going out, you just rub it outwards. Don't try and flatten the bubble because the bubble will just sort of stay in. It also tends to happen as well when you bend the Worbla. Don't worry too much about that. It always seems to bend when it goes in the middle, but it'll flatten out when you press it down on your mannequin. So what you want to do is heat up that bit more. You want to make sure that the entire thing is flexible. So pay special attention to corners. As you see, that corner there is not bending. So you want to make sure that bit's bendy. There you go. And then we have a fully flexible piece now. Okay. So what we're just going to do is we're going to bring the mannequin round. Okay, so you can see. And you're just going to lay it on there. Now, if you see, you just sort of lay it underneath. And that's all you do. You see how this mannequin's slightly fabric as well? It does ever so slightly stick to the fabric. But yeah, that's what you do. You just hold it on and wait for it to cool. If you're not heated up too much, it shouldn't be too long. If you are finding it's taking too long, or you've put it on yourself, what you can do is just jump in the shower or apply a damp cloth to it, and it cools down pretty much instantly when you do that. So yeah, that's what you have to do, just hold it like that. I'm just going to wait for this to cool, so I'm not spending 3 hours on video. Okay, so here is the final set piece. Now what I've just done is I've just actually fitted this to me a bit more than the mannequin, because it was a lot easier to do. In terms of like, obviously because I'm going to use it, I want it to fit perfectly to my body. So this is the basic underneath part. This is where the breast cup's going to be, and this is where you can put all your detail in, anything you want. You can make this as big or as small as you want as well, which is always a bonus as you do in the patterning stage. Next part is boob cups. Now, I've actually had a request to do the boob cup part a little bit more in depth, which, to be honest, with this video is probably going to be pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get the Worbla. Oh, sorry, polystyrene head. A bit squeaky that. So you're going to get your Worbla out, okay? Now here I have my wonderful acrylic globe that I showed you all before, and this is going to form the boob bit. So that's going to go right in there. Wonderful breastplate. Yeah, need that part. So basically, pop it on your Worbla. Now I give it about an inch either side. You can probably about 1.5 inches would be a bit better. 1.5 to 2 inches either side. Just take your scissors and you're just going to cut out. Now what you want to do ideally is, I'm just working this, right, what you want to do ideally is just mark off a little bit. Now you can either do this one of two ways. You can either cut it out as one piece, or you're going to do 2 pieces. Now you need them to double fold because you're going to be stretching it, and when Worbla's stretched it's not happy. It tends to sort of crack and goes a bit speckled, and there's a lot of holes in it and things, so you need a double thickness piece. So you can just do this like this. That's all you need. Just need 2 sort of rough squares. You don't need too neat. You just need them with a decent amount of space outside to be able to go over. I'm just going to cut those out. And also I've got a little bit of a seam line going on, so you can actually, which is good because you can see where it's going to go. Now I'm just going to pop another one of those out while the Worbla's out, so I can put it away for you. One thing I do say is never, if you want to have a pattern shape, like I have some little bits here in the back, these parts here are 3 layers of Worbla. Now what I did with these is I actually cut out the rough shape first of all, and then very lightly heated them to stick them together. But I still found the warp, because it's thermoplastic, it bends and morphs when it's warm. So I do recommend, especially with strips and things, if you can, if you're going to make things double thickness, extra thickness, don't cut out the shape. So if you're making a boob plate that's, say for example, like curved upwards and then down, don't cut that shape out. Don't cut the curve like that as you would imagine it to be. I'll show you, you don't cut that shape. If you want a breastplate to be that shape, don't cut that shape. Cut it out of the squares first. You cut the squares out, you double thickness them, you form them, wait for them to cool, and then you cut. You don't do it the other way around, otherwise you end up with a really deformed, unequal boob, pretty much, which is not what you want when you're doing your armour. So go for shiny side up, rough side of the floor, personal preference, doesn't really matter too much, and you're just going to heat. you can see here, we've got a bit of a good piece, got a bit of a wobble to it, not too bad. Sometimes though, like here, if you heat up this bit too long, it can sometimes like go a bit cold. So you just want to fold it like so, and then just press it flat. Now when you're heating it up, I find it's best to sort of press it, wait for it to warp up and then sink back down, and then you know you've got sort of, I find that the best heat to have with it. So you want to give it, make sure it's stuck down really well. I tend to rub it on the floor, make sure I've got really low pressure on it. You don't really want it to come apart. So that is the thing, but that however, in its state, is not going to go over this. It's too solid, too wobbly. So you're going to need to heat it. Now this is where it gets really hot. You don't want to heat it to the ridiculous nuclear thermo stage, but at the same time, you need it to go over a sphere. So you need to heat this a lot. It should start to go the white speckled colour. It goes between like a brownish colour first of all when you start heating it, and then when it gets to a stage where it's malleable to a higher point and can be stuck and things, it sort of goes a white speckled colour. After that, it starts going really, it goes even more white, and then that's the hotter and hotter it gets. Now, another thing I should say is, because it's getting hotter, this is not something, this isn't too bad to sort of flip over. You're not the phone middle, so it doesn't really matter. But, you can see we've not stuck it properly because getting slight bubbling in the Worbla. Now, what I do is I either smooth this out my hand or just rub it on the floor, rub it on the hard surface, and there you go, they're completely gone. It's best to tackle bubbles before it gets really warm. It's not too bad on this because you're going to be smoothing it out and flattening it, but if you have another project where that comes up, hand on, smooth it on the floor. Try and do it before it gets too hot, because otherwise it burns your hand a little bit. Okay, so mine's not actually got to the white speckled stage yet, but if you look at that, it's very bendy, very flexible. You can see it's got, but it is quite hot, so you've got to be careful. Now, what I'm going to do, so that's quite warm, I'm going to take my little tub of aloe vera Vaseline, not necessarily aloe vera, it's just this one is aloe vera. And you're going to rub it on the acrylic glove. If you don't do this, it won't come off. It will not come off. If you do find yourself in that situation, the best thing I can suggest that I've found, because I did it once with butter because I couldn't find the Vaseline, which I don't recommend, don't use butter, thinking it would be slippery enough and whatever, would be to use water, run water in between the crease of the globe and the Worbla, and it should come off. Pry it a little bit with a butter knife, but be careful. Soft butter knife, not one that you can jab your hands with. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to take this and you're just going to pull it. And you just sort of want to get it, you sort of want to just, try and have a hand on the top, because this will stop the Worbla from moving too much on the top, because you don't want it to stretch loads, you just want it to sort of fall and fit the globe. So we're just going to do that until it's going to be really difficult to actually get it to perfectly fit against it, only because you've got Vaseline underneath, so it's not going to stick. It's got nothing to adhere to. So that there is my Worbla covered globe. Okay. I've got a little bit there just sticking out, which is just a bit weird. So I'm going to do is slowly, slightly heat that. There we go. It doesn't need a lot because you don't want to heat the globe, and you can just smooth that down with your hands. You don't need a lot. Now on the top, if you feel it with your hand, if you feel it with your hand, it feels quite rough. You want it as smooth as possible. If you start getting roughness, you need to really clamp your hand on the top and make sure you don't stretch it too much. You can hear there, as opposed to the different sounds. It's quite gritty on top, and that's because you've stretched the Worbla to bend it over, which obviously you can't get around because you kind of need to do it. But it's just something to be aware of. If you pull it too much, it's going to rip, so you don't want it any more than just like a slight roughness. When that's slightly cooled, or cool enough, it should just come off. Just come off the pot dead easy. And then you have one sort of, this is still slightly squishy, but you have one lovely boob that will go into there. While it's still warm, again, I find it nicer when warm because it's easy to cut. You can just trim off the excess. Don't cut out your shape yet, again, at this point. It's not worth cutting out your shape yet. Shaping the breastplate is something from the very end. You just want to get a basic shape right now. So you need some rounded boobs and an underbust. No more really than that, because you'll start ruining the overall shape and things. If it does warp a little bit while you're cutting it while it's hot, just pop it over the boob bit. Now I have a little bit of a lip on this, where it's just come out a little bit. That doesn't matter, that can be sorted when you heat it up, when you're reforming things and cut the excess off. So there's one boob. I'm just going to do the other one. So same technique I'm going to be doing. Heat, fold, form over the boob. Pretty simple, pretty easy, and then I'm going to show you how to attach them when I have both of them. Okay, so I've got one boob attached. I've probably done about 4 or 5 takes of this now, because this one, what I realised was, because I had the Vaseline on my hands when I was smoothing the ball over, if you get it on the actual Worbla, it's not going to stick. So the best thing to do is just grab a damp cloth with a little bit of soap on it. Just washing up liquid's fine. Just rub it over the top. That's if you got any Vaseline on. That's just because I didn't wash my hands when I was doing it. That's for just the purpose of the video. I just didn't get a chance to wash my hands. So dry it off, and we have one perfectly fine boob. Now, hopefully this one works. What we're going to do is we're going to heat it up. Just what I did here. All I did was heat along this line and then heat along an edge. So I'm going to pick this edge where I've just missed a tiny bit off because it's just going to be hidden underneath this part. Okay, so just heat up that bit, slightly tacky, slightly flexible, and I'm just going to sit it in here. Okay. Now I tend to work from the outside inwards. That's only because I prefer, it's better to have a join in the middle. You know, if you're a woman watching this and you've got boobs, you know that women have like a slight gap in the middle. They're not like permanently pushed together. So it's actually more comfortable and more natural. If you've drawn the boob on, you're going to have a bit of a gap, as opposed to the curve. So that's all you do. You just push it, and I'm at the moment now, all I'm doing is there's just a tiny lip at the back where it's just not, obviously my boob isn't a circle, so it's not going to have a perfect circle underneath. And it's just squishing it along the edge, making sure it's nice and secure so it doesn't fall out, because that's the last thing you want. If you do find yourself that you heated it up too much and it's starting to warp and sort of sag at the bottom, grab the dome, put it inside and just push onto it. That's all you have to do. You just sort of rub along it. It's not too difficult to fix. And there we have it really. That is your basic breastplate. if you want to do anything here now, if you want to go about cutting any designs off it, adding any detailing, if you want to detail your Worbla and make a bit of boob shape, see I'm going for this sort of shape here because mine's the image that I'm using, that's the sort of shape I've got. So what I've done is pull up a reference picture and I've just drawn it on with marker pen as sort of symmetrical as you can. Go from each angle, so here I've actually pulled the point up a bit too much on this boob. Go as symmetrical as you can. If you want to, what you can do actually is put masking tape over the top, draw on your shape, cut it out, and then you can transfer it onto the boob. Wait a second. And that is that. That is trimmed out, one lovely shaped boob that can go over now. And that's perfectly fine. If you find this bit's a bit too stabby, as I do, sometimes, like obviously the boob's not circle shaped. You don't want too much because otherwise it's going to warp slightly. And then you can just pop it on yourself and just make sure it doesn't stab you or anything, because it does get quite stabby. I have learned that a few times, that you can stab yourself slightly from Worbla. But yeah, and then there you have it. There is one, well, 99% minus this part, one breastplate made Worbla. The basic thing, all you need to do now is detail it, make sure it's sort of exactly what you want on your character. You can add all sorts of lines and stuff, and what I'll be doing is I'll be going over that in another tutorial, and they're probably a lot less detail because this is probably for beginners. What I'm also going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a Q&A video, so that should be up after this one, hopefully, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that I've learned on how to work with Worbla. I'm going to be showing you some cool stuff, such as super duper detailed Worbla, and cool 3D stuff and how to cast with Worbla, really cool things. I'm also going to be answering a couple of questions, including what's the differences between Eva foam, Worbla, craft foam, all those sort of things. So if you're interested in that, and this isn't too long, I'd go and suggest getting a cup of tea, coming back, watching the next video. I'm going to get a cup of tea too. You can also leave any comments or ideas of things you want to build or make, or anything you need help with. If there's something that's broken, you need to fix it, and you're not quite sure of a solution, pop them in the comment section, and what I'll do is I'll try and get around to them. If I do another video and there's enough Q&A questions, I'll either answer your comment or I'll make another video, hopefully. I hope enough people watch this and want my opinion and help. So yeah, hope you have fun watching. Sorry it's such a long video, but I tried to get as much across as possible. And good luck with your projects.